social animals. They can't live alone.
Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome to our technically first episode of our podcast here that we're going to be doing. If you guys remember, we had done 2 podcast episodes like a long time ago, but this is going to be a different formatting. It's just me and Oscar sort of shooting the breeze and talking about Force Will, the state of the game, different formats going forward. We're going to be doing different interviews with different guests. For example, today, later on in this podcast, not too long from now, we'll be having a talk with Alex Blandin. It's an interview we actually have pre-recorded, so it's actually already happened. However, we did record it before spoilers happened, so just sort of a fair warning there. But yeah, so this is our first inaugural podcast for this, so if there's any kinks and all that, they'll be here. But let us know if you guys see something that you want to see fixed or improved on or anything like that. You can let us know in the comments or Discord, Patreon, Facebook. A lot of avenues to get a hold of us. But so this involves...
I prefer Discord. I was telling you,
I prefer Discord. Yeah.
If you're wondering, we didn't test run this at all. This is the first shot. We get it.
Yeah.
Colin doesn't like testing things.
We'll work it out a little bit later, but we want to get this out to you guys and sort of get the ball rolling, partly as a motivation for us as well. But in case you missed or don't know who we are, if you just listen to a podcast, I'm Colin and this is
Oscar.
Nice. And and also I just want to preface with, if you guys enjoy podcasts and listen to Force Will and all that, I highly recommend also going and checking out jreader.net if you haven't already. I can't imagine you're listening to a Force Will podcast and don't listen to them, but that's an awesome podcast that we listen to every time it's up. So I just want to recommend that as well before we get into this. But yeah, so today we're just the interview sort of revolves around the state of the game. We were talking to Alex about his thoughts about the changing meta and the bans coming forward and if they'll come to the US, different things like that and his thoughts. So we thought we'd talk about that as well.
Okay, so we'll start with looking at what the health of the game, kind of where we see it at right now, with the bans, the EU bans as they're commonly called or referred to. How do you feel, Colin, about the fact that we're not seeing them in the US yet? Because I feel that we're going to see them, but everybody's super impatient. They want to see them already. But like I said, I'm still sticking with we'll see them right before the new set comes out, where they usually just hey, CR update, here's ban lists, you're good to go.
Well, and this is one of the things I was talking to you, they can do that and that's fine and all. From a competitive standpoint, especially, it really doesn't matter because the GPs hasn't happened until after the new set comes out. So if they're releasing then, it's literally not going to affect the competitive scene at all, especially since ARG adopted the bans. You're perfectly fine. My main concern is the local level. So what we had seen with Reflect Refrain and different things like that, and Levitine, where it took so long for them to ban them, mainly because of waiting for cycles or just being thinking that things like Black Moonbeam will fix it and different things like that, rather than just banning it straight up. So by doing that, it's going to hurt the local level, which is where their money comes from. Obviously the competitiveness helps drum up excitement for the game, different things like that. However, the locals, if your locals die out, it doesn't matter how much excitement you drum up. If people went into the game and got burned out by it, odds are they're not going to come back to the game. And I think that's a lot worse. And so that's my fear, is people getting drowned out before the bans take place just at the local level.
But I feel like locals could even just implement the bans themselves. When you see EU does it, you see Australia, Taiwan, everybody's doing it. You can just be obviously this is going to hit the US. They're not going to leave it like this, or else it'd be really awkward going to GPs. So I still feel that locally, if we were going to our local stuff, which we've been super busy, so we haven't been there in 2 months now, that we would probably have implemented the ban itself and gone with it from that. So I don't feel it's a huge issue on that end.
It depends on the locals, really, because I'm sure there's going to be ones that have the guys are no, it's not banned, it's not an official thing, so I get to run this for no matter what type of thing, or store owners who don't play the game, so they just go by the official things and they don't want to mess with local types of rulings and stuff. So it's easier if it's just, especially if they're planning to do it anyways, it's sort of arbitrary when they do it at some point. Might as well do it sooner rather than later to avoid any sort of hurting the game at all.
Yeah, that's true. And I think like the only thing that they would affect if they were to announce it today is the 2K that Sylvania is running, because that's in November. So if they announce it when I said they are, that goes by with the same meta we're in now.
That'd be interesting. I'm curious to see how that runs down. Because she had said, yeah, that she's not implementing the ban unless the company itself implements it. So,
Yeah,
um, that'll be interesting. If they don't implement the ban, there'll be pretty much no reason to pay attention to it because it's going to be like, oh, shocker, top 8 was Fox and Prisha again. That's super exciting.
yeah.
It, um,
And then odds
and
are you would have like 6 Fox decks on top, and Prisha's like 7th and 8th place. Like in spite of it being so good, it never tops because it can't beat the Fox.
yeah, and that was something that someone, or was it? I think it was Rumor in our
Yeah,
Discord was pointing out. He was saying, why didn't they should have just outright banned Fox? And I actually agree with that. I think it would have been much nicer and cleaner to just ban Fox, Prisha, and you're done with it. But by banning Griffin, it still leaves doors open for Fox to be strong. Of course, he has that initial ramp is gone, but I feel like a lot of other avenues for Fox. It'll never be the tier 0 it was before, where it's taken all the places, obviously. But
right.
like the reasoning behind not banning him but banning Prisha, even though Fox was topping more than Prisha and kills out Prisha. And I was telling you, I think the reasoning for that is because there's so many cards that are exclusive to Fox. So basically, all the Chimeras are useless outside of Fox. You have things like Fox Spirit, and I forget the name, but the Resonator that goes with him as well, and a couple other cards that are pretty much
Kitsune
useless.
King and his assistant, as well
Yeah,
as
Lilius Petal's system.
lots of different things really worked with him.
So if they ban Fox, it would look very bad on them because all of a sudden they'd have just this slew of dead cards that are just completely useless. Whereas Prisha, they didn't have any sort of dependent cards. It'd be like, creating. This isn't the best example, but it'd be like the new Shayla deck, and then they ban Shayla. Well, without Shayla, all of a sudden a bunch of cards become useless because you don't have that passive rain. So it's pretty much impossible to run that type of deck anymore. So it'd be a similar thing of just the sheer amount of dead cards. I feel like they're just not too comfortable with that. So they'd rather ban Griffin and stuff like that. Although I feel like at that point, at some point, it's probably easier just to errata it. I personally think, but people don't like erratas. So.
Well, there was reasoning behind that, I thought, right? Because errata is just fixing something that was a mistake, not rewriting a card because it needs to be weaker, Like, yeah,
well, they did it with Reflective Rain already.
Right, and I think that set like a bad example is because every other card game fixes an issue, like, oh, that was a typo, or oh, it meant to do this, errata. And then Force of Will comes around and is like, hey, we're going to change that text completely, errata.
Well, I don't think I think games do it to fix mechanics if something's too strong, but you don't want to get rid of a card or completely make it so that when people pull a certain card, they're just SOL. So you make it so the card's still usable. You just gotta, go back and see the errata or something like that, or it's something intuitive. Like Reflective Rain was pretty simple enough where it's your turn and not your opponent's turn. You could do something like that with Fox. You could pretty much do an identical thing with Fox, and it'd be perfectly fine without banning Griffin, I think. But
yeah, I just don't agree with the errata part of it.
Yeah. But I got really excited though after they announced the ARG ban, and they had that poll of like, hey, what rulers are you guys going to run now? And obviously there was like the main ones were like Lumia was obviously the main one, but there's a bunch of others. But it was just, even of the most popular ones that had a bunch of votes, it was a whole list of like at least five that were in a similar range of a high volume of votes, and then just a whole slew of rulers below that. And it got me really excited going forward into the new meta of how it was right before Prisha came out, when you and I would be looking at the computer, seeing what the top 8s were. And it was just this super diverse sort of thing. You never knew what would be top 1 or what the volume of different rulers would be in top 8 and stuff like that.
Yeah.
What sort of things do you think we're going to be seeing going forward into, if this ban comes into the US?
I feel like when it comes in the U.S. again, with the way I feel that the bands will come in December when the set comes out. I also feel that at the same time we may see what those sealed abilities do, and that may just change just everything entirely. We could say right now, hey, right now I feel Favor's gonna do well, and I feel like Keurig can do well, and Fox will still be up there, and like Alex said, Tree can still be good. But then we'll see like those say sealed abilities come out. And it's like, oh, this changes everything. Like suddenly for some weird reason, Panda's good again. I know you want that one. That's why I said it.
I tell you, the sealed ability is gonna be like go grab any panda you want once per turn and put it into your field, and then all of a sudden Tigress is the greatest ruler ever.
Right, but to be more realistic, for right now when we're recording this, I do feel like I said, favor Keurig, Fox, Tree, which I did doubt Tree would even be a thing even after rotation, but it looks like it is.
I told you it would be.
And Charlotte's not bad. What you can do with her, I'm not 100%, but I feel like she's still kind of there.
Yeah, I think Zero is the one that a lot of people seem to be overlooking, where I feel like it has, especially with Black Moonbeam and stuff gone, and a lot of sort of J ruler hate I feel like it's kind of gone. Having that amount of control for only 2 cost and having her buff passively on her side and not taking battle damage, I think that's going to be something that's can slot into so many decks that run light colors in it I think that has a lot of potential. Probably.
I don't think people are overlooking it. There's still quite a bit of talk about Zero in like the US group and various Discord chats of people still really trying really hard at building her and doing their own version of the Death and Taxes, which to me is still not the same because Tsukioki Noble had rotated, but even with these white cards, they're pumped. They're like, oh, hey, you can somehow add 1 or 2 of these to a Zero deck, and it's suddenly making it even better now.
Yeah, no, I think the best route to go, or not the best, but I definitely think a route to go with Zero is just some sort of new variation of like, not necessarily, but like Joey's Zero Bomb, not the obviously mechanics of it, but the idea of like flipping as quick as you can and swinging in as quick as you can without being blocked, and then your J ruler is able to stay out there unless they have spells that can kill it because they can't take battle damage and stuff like that. So I feel like
you could run a Keurig deck, right, and just burn it by flipping your ruler over.
Yeah, but it depends how prevalent Keurig becomes. I think that's another one people are skimming over temporarily, at least until I think after we see some of the spoiled cards, especially for Red, if there's more support for him and stuff like that, then he'll start seeing play. I feel like he's just short like 1 or 2 cards that'll put him over the top right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll go ahead and start moving it. We'll go ahead and transfer to the interview now, since that's probably what you guys are waiting for. But so we're going to start doing these weekly podcasts, and so majority of the time it'll probably just be me and Oscar here talking, discussing stuff like we are now, just more detail, because some of these topics we're talking about we've already covered in interviews, so we don't want to tread over them too much. But we'll have people on, like I said, for interviews once in a while, and just be talking about our thoughts on the game. Probably talking a lot about spoilers right now. We'll have the daily videos for spoilers, obviously, but going over our different favorite cards of the past week and what decks we might be thinking of going into the future and what things we think you guys should look up for. And and you should we'll be uploading a lot of times. We'll try uploading these podcasts early onto our Patreon, asking you guys questions on Patreon to be answered into the podcast and different things like that. So be sure to check that out if you guys are interested. And we'll see you guys in this interview, and then we'll catch you right after the interview. Any last thoughts, Oscar?
Yeah, I mean, just real quick, is like, what's everybody's thoughts on like the daily spoiler videos that we're going to be doing? Like, would you rather it be condensed into like a 3-day video, 1-week video? I don't know. I'm so on the fence about doing it every day.
Well, and keep in mind, Oscar did say that he wants to do at the end of each week an article on our website, tcgscrubs.com, that recaps the entire past week's spoilers. So we'll have the daily video. If we do the daily videos, we'll have those daily. But if you don't want to watch a video every day, you can just wait for that article at the end of the week and just see the entire recap of everything and Oscar's personal thoughts on it and different things like that. So it depends. It could also depend if you like Oscar or Joey better. That could be what it comes down to.
True.
So hashtag Team Oscar or hashtag Team Joey. But here's the interview. Yeah, I figured we just sort of the overall topic is just sort of the state of the game, but I sort of wanted to get talk to you because I noticed like over the past little while you had been doing quite a few posts both in the U.S. and After Dark group about different things regarding the game and sort of constructive criticism as well as things that they should be doing and not, and that all sort of like. What spurred me to ask is because you had done that post in the U.S. group calling on people that they should contact the different heads of the Force of Will company itself in order to implement the EU ban, which was a lot more relevant like 2 hours ago. But I was wondering if you want to sort of talk about why you feel like the EU ban is so important to have in the US and all that.
So we're in the off season right now, and the biggest problem we have with, not the biggest, but one of the bigger problems we have with the Force Will competitive season is that the off season is abnormally long for a TCG. We're about 4.5 months, 5 months all the way from the end of September, all the way until usually the end of January, beginning of February. So that's quite a long time. During this time, the game is typically supported by ARGs, like Circuit Series and stuff, and then player-run events like Svitlana's 2K, or during the off-season last year, Billy Buttons did a couple of 1Ks. So it's supported in turn by the players and ARG and store owners and stuff like that. Now, the problem is that still, we see a lot of interest die off in the off season. As you can see, the US group is practically dead. There's no post compared to what we have during a normal season. So when you have the off season, you kind of have to do everything you can to accommodate the players and keep their interest, because come the actual season, you want people to still be playing your game. And now ARGs are giving away unpaid invites and invites to their own event. So people are really incentivized to go to these. The problem is that your format is crap. This format is so bad I wouldn't even play in Worlds with this format. Like, it's not fun. It would be fun. Like, most people see 2 decks consistently topping, like, oh, that looks like a balanced format, and on paper it is. The problem is that the aspect of these 2 decks, how they play, is not really skill based. It's more of like Prisha's like, okay, do I draw well with Prisha? Fox is just, do I hit the killing stones? So like the aspect of their mirror matches and their matchups versus each other are just not so skill based. It's more just luck, which I don't think makes for a very good format.
Yeah.
So I think that's a huge part of it, is wanting the off season to be as successfully as it possibly can be. I know Rob had hinted that we would be having announcements come in a week or two, a few weeks back, but nothing has come to fruition. And I know Force Will Company likes to drag their feet with this kind of stuff. So I've kind of been trying to push for a better ban list so we can have a good off season. Because we still got another, if it's the same as every other year, we still got like another 3-4 months worth of off season, and I want that to be as popular with the players as possible. And the problem is that when you have a lot of locals now that are playing by the EU ban list, but you have all these people who are like, oh, I don't want to play with the ban list because it's not official. It's just like, we need some sort of someone running official events who says, okay, enough is enough. We are supporting this ban list, and that kind of sets the standard for everybody else to go along and be like, okay, well, this guy's running official events. Force Will had to have approved that. He didn't just say, okay, yeah, fuck Force Will. He had to have spoken with the company and gotten their approval. So that means Force Will is willing to work, especially when we as a community voice our opinions enough. And that was kind of part of the point of my post yesterday, was to get the company's attention and show them, hey, we want this ban list. We can't keep playing this same format over and over because nobody wants to play that.
Yeah, and it was interesting, the timing of it. Do you think that your a post and then a day after the ARG post, do you think they were at all related, or was it just a coincidence?
I do believe they were related. I think Jim did a good more work than I did, though. I think what happened was, I think the company definitely saw it for sure. I mean, I tagged them. They could not have missed it. So I'm sure they saw that, and they saw a lot of the comments that players were making. I can't speak to how many messages people may have sent them. But I know it also got Jim motivated. Jim more than likely saw the post and said, okay, it's clear that the players want to change. What can I do as a TO? So Jim took a poll today. And the overwhelming majority said we want the EU ban list. Jim more than likely went back to the company and said, hey, look, these players, they want this ban list. Like, let me do this at my events. So if it goes poorly, then when your actual events come up, you already know it's not a good idea and you don't have to implement it. But you can let me implement them at my events and see how it goes. So I'm really looking forward to the ARGs. I think that's going to have a big play in whether or not the company decides they're going to change the ban list, I think they're going to stick with it either way. I think when the actual season starts up, we will see either the same exact ban list or maybe like a 1 or 2 card difference. I do fully believe, though, that they need to make a universal ban list. Like, they can't have the EU on one thing and us on another thing. It doesn't make good for good testing. It doesn't make good for new players who are trying to read content and get in the game when they see these lists from other countries and they don't understand, okay, why aren't they playing these decks? Why aren't they playing these cards? Oh, because they're on a different ban list. Like, so it's very confusing for a number of different reasons.
Yeah. No, I agree. I thought it was weird when I was first playing Force of Will, and I don't know at one point I remember there was somewhere that had a different ban list or different like rules for the playing that was different, and I thought that was extremely weird that it's not just a universal thing across the board. And especially at the competitive level, on the road to Worlds, essentially, 2 different people who could get an invite to the Worlds at the exact same day, if they're in 2 different countries, the way they got that invite could be completely different as far as skill level, just based on those bans. So I think it's good that they would, or I hope that they move toward that.
Do you agree with the entire ban list?
The only other card, so initially when the topic of ban lists and everything came up it came up at Worlds, it came up again in like a few behind the scenes chats, and I talked with I talked with like a few other well-known players. Talked with the Miles, I've talked with my own brother, I've talked with a few of the other Worlds competitors about what they think needs to be done. So what I felt at first initially was that you just, instead of all the bans they made, I said just ban Demonic Dead and ban Prisha. I said Prisha absolutely had to go. I figured my initial thought process was that by taking Demonic Dead away, you just put Fox decks back to where they were at before, when they just had Monkey instead. And then I got to thinking, okay, you probably need to take Severing Winds away too, just because I feel like decks like Fox and Prisha really are able to abuse these Severing Winds, because they don't really rely on playing 2 cards in a turn, on top of the fact that for most control decks to sufficiently deal with decks like Fox and Prisha, they need to be able to play multiple cards per turn, whether it's Bear Magic and something that pairs with it, or just like 2 kill spells, a counter spell and a kill spell, etc. So I think Severing Winds kind of also put Fox a little bit over the top, and I decided after, you know what, maybe they should ban Severing Winds as well. Now, something I didn't think about was Hook, which clearly the guys in the EU did think about. So I do agree with Hook. I think Hook needs to stay banned until we have an actual counterspell for creatures, not like Final Breeze or for 3-mana release or Severing Winds or whatever it might be. We need like just a solid 2-mana cancel a creature. And I think even now with Fair Spell, it might be a little dangerous to take him off, but I think I really do think he can come back in time. So those were my initial thoughts. Now, the thing I didn't think about was that Demonic Dead, because Prisha is gone, the Fox decks were built and catered to beat other Fox decks in Prisha. They never took any consideration into control decks. So even if you remove Demonic Dead, which obviously is a huge advantage for Fox versus control, especially, I think that now these Fox decks become more focused on dealing with control. And when that happens, it doesn't really... Before, control was having a hard time keeping up while these Fox decks were not teching anything for them. And now they have to play against this deck with, like, they're just teched out just to play against control, because I don't think any aggro deck right now can contest any build of Fox. Like, just summoning, if you have Griffin, that is, just summoning an Omid or a Griffin is just so much for aggro to deal with. So I think with that being said, that the only deck they would then have to worry about is control. So I think eliminating Griffin in the long run was a better choice than eliminating Demonic Dead. I think I overestimated how valuable Demonic Dead would be to the deck. Honestly, I still think the deck is playable, as crazy as it sounds, without Griffin. And Aaron Miles and I had talked about it at the airport before we were both leaving Japan, and he was like, no, I'm pretty sure if they ban Griffin, it's still just a really good mid-range deck. And at the time I said, no, I don't think so, because you can everything will just play Alice's World of Madness and all this hate. But I didn't consider the fact that Fox could play all this hate too. And I think now, after testing, that Fox is still, well, not the best, not like the upper echelons of tier 1. I think it is still a viable tier 1, if not tier 1.5 deck. And so I think maybe if I could go back, I might have banned Fox, just said, you know what, let's not mess with this anymore. Let's not take any more chances. Let's just get rid of it. But I'm willing to give something a chance. I'm willing to give it a chance. So I think, as of right now, the only thing I would change with the EU ban list is I would put Severing Winds on it.
Speaking of, you mentioned playtesting and stuff. Obviously, it's going to be pretty much hard to tell until it actually happens. But do you think going forward with ARGs and stuff like that, do you think we'll have with these bans a much more of a variety of rulers and decks, or do you think it'll sort of switch to just another separate type of two rulers that are maybe more fun to play against, less overpowering as Prisha and Fox? But do you think it'll consolidate back into two rulers, or do you think it'll be a more diverse meta now?
So what my testing has led me to believe so far is that there are a variety of different decks that can be played. I would say this is the best so far from what I've seen. So I'm not going to say maybe a month down the line someone finds some broken deck that just beats every other deck. But as of right now, from what I can tell, this is the best meta we've had since the LEL meta last year, where we had everything under the sun topping, like Val 2, Val 3, Gwyber, Mono White Lumia Hook. Like, we just had a billion different decks that were making it top. Yeah, that was a great meta. That's one of the best metas we've ever had in this game. And that's what it's really shaping up to be right now. So, and I think too, in the beginning of a format like we're in now, the first few events, we're just going to see a crazy mix of everything until we either see a deck that is consistently topping events in numbers, or we see one or two good players winning or doing very well in an event with a certain deck. I think that has a huge impact on this game too, is what wins and what the good players are playing. I think those are the two biggest factors. So, I was just thinking of that all the way up until right before Prisha came out in that set, how I don't know if we had talked about in our channel or not, but how diverse everything was. And it was almost came to a point of randomness of, like, you weren't even sure like what would be the top deck on, depending on which competition. It was always a different ruler, it felt like, or a different type of deck under under the same ruler. Hopefully this paves the way for my soul deck to win.
So, Alex, would you be attending any of the ARGs, like the one that's being advertised right now?
I don't think I'll be able to make Collinsville. That's about an 18-hour drive for me, and I cannot afford to take a plane ticket for a potential unpaid flight.
Right.
I will be attending a good portion of the East Coast ones. There's one in Connecticut, which is only Hartford is about 2.5 hours from me. So I will definitely be attending Connecticut. I believe there was like Virginia and like a few others along the East Coast that I will more than likely be attending. I knew there was Vegas. I probably won't go to that, but there were a decent amount spread out. There's Florida and stuff. So I'll be attending some of the more north, middle, East Coast ones.
Yeah. So for somebody who's going to go to one of these events, what ruler would you recommend for them to take with the bands in place?
Right now, I'm really liking Tree. I played it at my locals for the last 2 weeks. We do some they do live streams for my locals. It's the Wiz store. We do them every Monday right around 6 to 10 o'clock. You'll see like live streams go up in the US group, and that's us playing.
Yeah.
I've really been liking Tree recently. I've liked the idea of Guild 2. I actually haven't got around to playing it like too much yet, but I really do like Guild 2. I think Fox is still playable. I don't know to what degree, but I have fiddled with it a little bit, and I do think it is a somewhat viable deck still. I think rush decks are still decent, just due to the fact that everybody, I think, is going to be really hard to control in the beginning and aren't really going to be taking too much for the rush decks. So I think that's something to look out for. It's just these rush decks that might get there because the control decks are just totally unprepared.
Yeah, I think that was something J Ruler is really wanting, is for more control decks that we haven't really seen too much of. It's all been like sort of these big like things like Prisha and stuff that really like go in hard, and there's not much you can do about it control wise at this point in time.
I'm not. Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead.
I'm not particularly attached to any sort of meta, honestly. I'm just not a big fan of like just all straight aggro. That's really the only thing. I don't like dice roll, and I don't like just like formats that are just play like aggro or lose. Other than that, I really couldn't care. Like if we have a healthy like aggro control combo or control, it doesn't matter to me. Like I honestly have no preference of which deck to play. I just want to play the best deck.
So you weren't a big fan of Millium?
No, can't say I am. Not a big fan of dice rolling in card games. I do love dice rolling in real life. I can tell you I love gambling, but not when I'm playing card games.
That was one of the main things I hated about Pokemon when we played Pokemon, was the randomness of the dice roll of like that would completely, make you win or lose just based on a flip of the coin.
Yeah, too many coin flips and stuff like that. I remember there's like a card that say play rock paper scissors. The winner draws 6, the loser draws 3. What?
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure probably not good, but like even so, just like rock paper scissors, like really, that's like the most like easily cheatable game ever. Like I don't know.
Yeah, Oscar's pretty bad at it.
Just because Colin's really good at it. So of the new rulers that we've seen come out from Ancient Knights and the starter decks, which of those do you feel has most potential so far from what you've seen?
The Rhea, Keurig. I'm just trying to go through them all in my head. Not what's the Panda? Okay, so the Panda is terrible. I don't know why I see so many lists for people asking for Lumia Panda. That deck is terrible. Like that's the one thing I'm looking forward to at the beginning of the format, is when people are playing that stupid deck and free wins. Like that's all I can see. That deck is terrible. So
I agree.
Let's see. So the Panda one sucks for sure. I don't see any of them being too above and beyond, to be honest. I do like Keurig Ririk as a card. I think he's cool, but I don't know how good he is. The only one that maybe I really am kind of looking at is Shayla, and because she has 2 really good cards, she has Shayla's Foresight. I think that card is straight gas. That's the one that you get. It's the command if you have Shayla. Mm-hmm. It says like you get to bounce a guy that's attacking. Gets you 3 things: So you can bounce a guy that's attacking, draw a card, shuffle your grave back in, or bounce an addition. Which the fact that you get 3 of those just seems insane with her. And then Seabed Investigation, which says if you have 2 mermaids, which she's a mermaid, you look at the top 4 and you put 2 cards to your hand and to the bottom. I think that card's insane. So I think both of those cards put Shayla in a position where it could be a potential contender if given more support.
Yeah.
She herself is absolutely awful. She's like, her ruler side literally says, or J side literally says draw a card. Absolutely useless. So if she gets enough support, I could see like if these rain cards get support, or maybe like if we still have that hidden text or whatever it is, if they're still gonna go with that. Potentially she's good, but Gil I guess is a good ruler, but I don't like all of his like cards, all his support cards kind of suck. So I'm not like on it. So personally, I think none of them are good. But
what about what about a Farrer?
Farrer's not a starter deck one, is he?
No, I think I was cutting in and out. I was mentioning the starter decks as well as the first set of Ancient Knights.
Oh, yeah. Farrer is the best one, hands down. Then sorry, if we're talking including set ones, hands down, out of the 8 of them, Farrer is the best, 100%.
Yeah.
I think he will see a lot of play now. I think Elves is a very interesting deck, and I think we will be seeing Elf decks for sure. The biggest concern they have is the final battle, but I imagine if you're playing Elves now, you're probably playing blue for Millennia Bond. I don't think I would play that deck without Millennia Bond because final battle is just too much of a blowout. So I do think they are actually a tier 1 competitor right now. I'm not quite sure what a list would look like, and I haven't really tested them, but just in my mind, like thinking about it, it does say flip and put a 4-drop in play, and you can basically protect your it's pretty hard to final battle you through Fair once he's flipped. So I think if we get a better elf target, he'll be a lot better. Like a lot better. We have like some decent elf targets, but if we got like just like one really solid 4-drop, like Tia's alright, but she's not like for 4 mana she could be better. So I think if we get like a really solid 4-drop elf, it would be like it could potentially put it over the top.
Yeah, I know Joey's really into that deck right now. He's using it in a Lackey tournament right now. So we'll see how he does.
There's a Lackey tournament going on right now?
It's a private one through DMO's Patreon.
Oh, that's interesting. Huh.
He does a monthly Lackey tournament.
That's cool.
Yeah, and I lost pretty bad, but it's
Were
all
you
right.
playing?
Yeah, I was playing my soul deck and didn't go as well as I had hoped. But how do you think? Because I've been seeing like off and on. I'm curious to get your thoughts on this. Concern about because there's people who are concerned about the overall state of Force of Will, the game and company as a whole. Do you think the game is going in a direct? Are you worried at all about the game dying out, or do you think it's going in an uphill sort of good direction?
So I kind of go back and forth on this one myself. So what I look at a lot of is what I talk to players. I have players message me. I look at the Facebook group. I'm in every Force of Will Facebook group, or I read every Force of Will Facebook group. I'm in the Italian group. I look at the community as a whole. I look at it in the US. So I go back and forth about this. So like sales might be good, but on paper, the game seems to be suffering, or at least at a community level. Like even though it's the off season, the Facebook page has been on a steady decline for the last since 2 years ago. I mean, that's to be expected. Any new game's booming when it first comes out, but it's definitely been on a decline. I've seen a decline at a local level, and that's not just my own personal local. That's people who have complained. I've seen people who've said, "Oh, I was able to build a local," but I've seen more people say, my local's been dying. I've seen these retailer groups. There are a few like secret retail groups, and I've seen these posts people make. A lot of store owners have kind of given up on the game, and that's a big problem. So while it may sell well, a ton of like store owners, you can see them in these retail groups just going, I can't sell Force of Will. I had to get rid of it. Force of Will's dead. I can't do this. I can't do that. Like, so the game is suffering, I think, but I don't think it's at a point of no return. I think the game, I don't want to say the game is dying, but I think the game is bleeding. Dying games are like, we have a GP and it only, like, our GPs are consistently getting like 40, 50 people. That's a dying game. Like, we still put up like 100 to 200 people. Like, games that are dying, they don't get that much. Even if it's like the same, like, even if like 50 to 100 of those people are the same, there's still clearly a following for the game to an extent. Enough so that they can continue to host said GPs and whatnot. So I think a lot of things need to change, though, for them to redeem themselves or to stop the bleeding, so to speak. And I think the company needs to act a little faster than it has been. For example, the ban list. The company just needed to act a little bit faster with this ban list. And I think they did a good job with the ARG thing. I'm glad Jim pushed that and they had agreed. And I think now that ARGs are getting real support from the company, that will also help put the game back in a better light. I don't know what GP pricing is this season, but if we could get something like cash events as well as another Masters, that could potentially put us back on the map. Another thing I would like to see from this company is more marketing. Their marketing is really kind of poor, and they have a $20,000 tournament. And while that doesn't like scale down to like top 8 or 64 or whatever, Pokemon Worlds for first place gives 25,000. Now they do scale, like I think you get 20 for second or 15 for second, like 10 for top 4. So you get prizing all the way down, which Force Will doesn't do. But it's just funny to me that our grand prize is only $5,000 less than the one of the biggest card games that like contesting right now to be the biggest card game. And we had 40 players at this tournament, invite only or not. We had like over 80 qualified and half that amount showed up. We have a $20,000 prize line, like qualifiable prize, but we only get like 100 to 200 for GPs. That to me just kind of blows my mind, even for a game with a bad rep, so to speak. I feel like if they were able to market this more, we would see a huge upturn in attendance, and I think cash events would help do that too. On top of the paid trip to Japan, I think we need all of it. We need the paid trip, we need the prize cards, we need the promos, and we need the cash. And I think the game can come back. They need to fix it at a distribution level as well. Distributors giving away promos to shops that don't hold tournaments, stores that just go and sell the promos because they hate the game and they don't give a shit. I think we need to fix that at a distribution level as well for the game to really retain its value. That's a huge part, is a secondary market. So I think if they can get better marketing, bounce up their pricing a bit, and fix their distribution, those are the biggest issues, I think. And better communication on the company's part. Right now, it's no secret, Jordan got fired. It hasn't been really discussed too much outside of rumors, but basically what happened was I know the final straw was that he approved an artwork that Force of Will did not. From what I've been told, is that he approved the what's that card? What's the card with the X's over its nipples? The new Snow White or whatever. Yeah, that he approved the new Snow White art. The company wasn't happy about that. I don't believe he was fired, so to speak, as more if it was like we'll give you the chance to quit, essentially. And he was at Worlds because he was finishing up his time at Worlds. Like they said, we want you here through Worlds because he speaks English well and he can help. He could help with the running Worlds and whatnot. So they let him finish up his job there, kind of like his 2 weeks, so to speak. And then he was gone. So he was, I guess he was like fired to an extent, but it was more like okay, we want to get like a layoff, or we want to get rid of you, so we'll let you finish up your time. So something to that effect. That was the story I got anyway. So but I can say with 100% certainty that he does not work for the Force Wheel Company anymore.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
It looks like we had in the chat a question that says, you think that the 2K coming up will push the company in the direction of cash tournaments if there's a big showing? That's the Svetlana 2K.
Yes, once. It's kind of hard to say because honestly, I don't know what this company pays attention to anymore. I know they watch the group to a little extent. Like I don't know how much. It's really hard for me to say that one cash event having a good turnout in any sort of direction. Billy Buttons, Billy ran some cash events last season, and he got pretty good attendance. I think he got like 40 or 50 players, and I don't. That didn't really incentivize them to do cash events, and one of them was before the season started. I don't think the company pays attention to the smaller events unless they're really, really, really well advertised or someone draws their attention to it. I don't think it has a huge factor in whether in their pricing decisions, unless like one of these events were to get like, if her event were to turn around and get like 400 people or something, then I imagine they'd be like, okay, we got to take notice. She had a cash event with 400 people. The other thing too, you have to understand is that Japanese companies don't like offering cash prizes. They believe that a lot of stuff will go wrong, and sometimes stuff does go wrong when cash is on the line. It gets a lot more cutthroat, so to speak. So I don't think that the turnout at Svetlana's events will impact their pricing all that much. It's also with the previous format, so I don't see how it could have really an impact on the ban list either, unless the attendance is just like terrible. But I think more what they'll look to is their own official events, which are now ARGs as well. So I think they'll look to the success of ARGs and they'll look to the success of GPs. I don't think they'll be paying too much attention to Svetlana's event. They could be, though. I could be completely wrong. This company may have a much better eye to detail than I give them credit for. But from what I've seen in the past, I would say that is not the case.
Or did you want to follow up there, Oscar?
I mean, I did have another question that goes back to the like state of the game and where it is. Do you think it was a good decision to go ahead and release 2 more card games? You know, Casters being
That's
one that
actually
came out
what I was
this
going to
month.
ask.
No, that was a terrible idea. Absolutely awful. They said they have a different investor team for Casters. It seems to me, it seems to me that what was the other one? Architect. Something got caught up with that game. Maybe it didn't catch with the distributors. Maybe the investors just decided to back out. I don't know what happened, but we haven't heard anything about that game. But Casters is being pushed decently hard in Europe. I don't know. It doesn't seem like they're pushing it super hard here in the U.S. Probably because it wouldn't sell too well. It's kind of a niche market for the U.S. So to speak. I think it was kind of a bad idea because it sets. Number one, it looks kind of bad for your current player base because number one, they think, okay, they're splitting up their games, so Force Wheel's not going to get as much attention. The quality will decrease. Maybe it's not selling well, so they need to try the Bushiroad strategy where they just start releasing other games. It also divides the player base where players are like, oh, well, you kind of like divide your own player base where I feel like Casters isn't going to bring anyone new in. No one's jumping at the chance to play Casters. Except other Force Wheel players who it's already kind of like heavily marketed to. So I think they're just stealing from their own Force Wheel players, so to speak.
Right.
I think they are way too early in their. The first game is still in its infancy. We're only in the 4th year here in the U.S. So I think it was just a very poor idea on the company's part. But I mean, I'm not sitting behind the desk. I don't see the logistics behind it. So maybe from a financial standpoint, it was a good move on their part. I don't know. I can't really speak to that.
What do you think about like online simulators, like the way Pokemon has one? It looks like Magic's going to have one. What's the importance of that? Like, should that be a focus to pull new players in, or how do you
I
feel?
think I think automated company official, even if they're not automated, automation is always a little bit nicer. Makes it easier, makes it run smoother, etc. But I think it is big, but it's big that you have something to support that. Like if they're gonna do it, they need to have tournaments like MTG or Pokemon does. It shouldn't just be like, oh, play against your friends. They need to have something that's motivating people to play on the system other than practicing. Because honestly, while automation is nice and all, I can play a game a hell of a lot faster on Lackey without automation when I'm just doing everything myself than I can just clicking for priority responses. I can just talk to people. And I mean, unless there's some type of ranking or reward system, I personally am not incentivized to play against randoms in a matchmaking feature. I would much rather just play players I know that are competent, unless I'm being rewarded in some way to play against people in, say, a ladder fashion or tournament fashion. Right. The problem is they have what the hell happened to the battle simulator? They had that. They wouldn't have the old cards, so we all waited. We're like, okay, I guess we have to wait a fucking year to use this thing. So we waited a year. It was terrible. They had IP-based matchmaking. Half the cards didn't work. They glitched, and then it just disappeared off the face of the earth. And that's something that I'm kind of like. That's something about this company that kind of disappoints me is a lot is they hype up these new things, they release them, and then they don't follow through. Or like things like the anime where, oh, we're going to have an anime, they release a trailer, and then boom, it's gone, never to be heard of. Yeah. And then we have things like the battle simulator where it's like, oh, we messed up, but it's okay because in a year this will be usable and we'll fix it, and now we don't know anything. Like, it's just like totally useless. So I think if they're gonna make something online, they need to make it good, they need to follow through, and they need to support it. And I'm not sure that's something that the Force of Will company can really commit to at this point in time. I think they need to. I think that's a way to improve their game, but there are bigger aspects of improving and fixing their game that they need to focus on more. Right. I think for most of us, Lackey will suffice for right now. I would rather the game fix itself and then worry about that after.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, and it was a similar line of things too, with like stuff like them saying that they're going to be switching to 3 Vingolf a year, and they were hyping that up for a while, and then
I think it was 2 Vingolf a year. It was 2 a year, or was it 3?
No, because they do 2 a year right now, right? Or
no, we do 1 a year. It was hyping up to 2 a year.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I got some of them.
Then again, that was something. So another problem with Jordan was he would say these things on the stream all the time that just turned out not to be true. Yeah. And whether this is stuff that he was told to say and they just told him, oh, it's not happening, like don't bring it up again, or he just like heard might have happened and he decided to go ahead and say, hey, this is happening. Yeah. I don't know. I personally was not a huge fan of Jordan. However, he doesn't work at the company anymore, so I have no reason to badmouth the guy. He said a lot of things on stream that were not true, though. So I personally don't think we'll be seeing another Vingolf anytime this year, unless it just pops out of the woodworks. Usually at this point, we would see some like a news release on that website. What's it, ICV2 or whatever it is that stuff always pops up on. And they have the new set coming out in December, which is already, we all know about that. So, I mean, I would say there's probably not another one coming this year, more than likely.
I had a question when it came to Worlds, because I remember last year's Worlds event. I feel like it was like a lot more publicized, like not just the stream itself, but I feel like a lot of players were doing like live broadcasts in the US group. And I don't remember seeing any of that this year. Was there like no raffle event or any of the artists that were there?
As opposed to us doing artists this year, or like a bigger, like more of a showy Worlds, we had day 2 side events. We had constant drafts, like you could make 8-man draft pods. They did that over the raffle, which is fine. I'm totally, I actually like, I didn't personally play in any of the draft pods, Well, I did. I sat down and I got my packs and then I walked away. But I personally did not play. I did not like draft. But that was cool. I like, even though I didn't participate, I still thought that was a cool idea. So I'm fine with the trade-off of no bingo event. And they had the official Force of Will singers there last year. I don't know if they were just trying a change. Maybe the budget constrictions got tighter. I don't really know. But I would say, as for the no streaming part, though, I think that goes back a little bit to the Vegas event that occurred weeks before, where a big part of the issue that they had was part of the card being dropped was on stream. Like part of that, the part where Anton comes back, where Anton gets the game lost, and the part where he comes back in. I think the part where he gets the game lost. No, that part's not on stream. But the part where he comes back in and starts yelling is on stream. That caused a huge problem, because you have no deniability in that situation where it's like, okay, this was a situation and it very clearly happened. It's on video. So I think they were implementing a lot of rules changes, which a lot of us did not necessarily agree with. Like, you may have heard about the sticker system. Yeah, that was awful. Thank God that is not happening here. I think they were implementing a lot of changes that, coupled with the Masters event that just happened, Force Will is a company that likes to control publicity at the source, and I think they did not stream it in case something got out of hand. They didn't want the stream to pick it up and cause another issue.
Right. Did they explain why they chose to do the stickers?
They wanted to be cool and innovative. They may have. If they did, I probably didn't bother remembering or paying attention, because it was just probably shit. So, I think it was just a way to balance the dice roll system. Which, I mean, I won't really speak to whether or not it is effective in balancing that. The fact is that they announced at the beginning of the Worlds. They talk about the sticker system, which none of us knew about. And I say out loud, like, while we're all in the player meeting, all 100 of us or whatever it is, I say to the head judge, what is to stop someone from putting a sticker or not putting a sticker on their badge and just being able to go first? And he goes, we will keep track. And I said, you're going to keep track of all of them, like all of these stickers. And sure enough, what do you know? Last round, someone goes ahead and does it and gets disqualified.
Yeah.
So, same. And they're like, oh, we'll keep track. Well, you didn't do a very good job. The player actually caught it, not the judge. They went back and they kept some of the rounds. Obviously, you're not going to keep, like, there was no way they're going to keep 100 different players 7 rounds worth of match slips. Like, what are they're going to keep 700 match slips and go through them? No, that's ridiculous. Like, so whether or not it was balanced, the fact that they announced it last minute, and the fact that there wasn't a clear system in place to prevent someone from just cheating with this, is kind of my grievances with the sticker system. But we'll never have to deal with it here, so it's totally fine.
Yeah, no, that's good. It was funny, like, just like having, since there was no stream, just having the random news trickle in and just like hearing like, oh yeah, no, they're using stickers. Like, what does that even mean? For what? No, to help determine who goes first and stuff. It's like, what is this like? That sounds like a Pokemon theme. Like, all right, all the little kids get a little sticker and stuff, so they know when they have to go first.
It was, we were ragging on it pretty hard at Worlds. We were going pretty hard on the sticker system. I wasn't even playing it. I was going hard on the sticker system. Like, it was just so bad. But I mean, it's whatever. Yeah. It's never going to happen again. Thank God for that. I just wish they had decided to implement it at anywhere but the most important event of the year.
Yeah, that was weird too.
Last Worlds question I had, we can go on to another subject. What was your opinion on the fact that they had, was it 4 or 5 rounds of Swiss and then they went straight to draft?
Absolutely awful. That's like probably like 20-30% of the reason I didn't play in it was the fact that we had 4 rounds of one of the most abysmal formats that Forcible has ever had into 3 rounds of my least favorite format probably ever. So that's more personal grievance. I just hate draft. The biggest problem with draft was that they allowed rulers from the packs, and if you pulled fair, you just absolutely, and some elves, you just absolutely slaughtered everyone else. Mm-hmm. So I think draft has the potential to be balanced, provided they do not allow pack rulers. That was an awful, awful decision.
That's a good point.
Yeah, pack ruler is not a good decision ever, I think. So I would never have. They need to stop using worlds to implement. They need to not use worlds to implement like experimental new things. Like they do that a lot. So they've done that. They did that the year before as well. We got all these new mechanics like Energize, and they would make us play it only the first set in starter decks legal and up until this year. So I think they need to stop showcasing things like at Worlds. That's like what it is for them, a way to like showcase new things, aspects of the game. But I think they need to stop doing that actually, because it's really annoying for those of us who take Worlds seriously and are trying to win.
Yeah, no, that I'm hoping now, especially with the more close partnership with ARG, if they really feel the need to do these experimentations, they can. It's a lot easier now to do it through all the competitions of ARGs and GPs and stuff and have it actually be refined when you get to Worlds and not the other way around. Oscar, was there anything else you want to talk about, or should we start wrapping it up?
I guess one more question, then we wrap up. So, as somebody who's like a top player, do you go to, say, pre-release events at your local stores? Do you buy product, or do you just buy singles?
I sometimes will go to pre-release events. I don't particularly buy singles. Like if I need something, I'll trade for it. I like. I have a bad habit of just showing up to events with like no deck, or having my deck stolen the night before, or losing my deck the night before, or just not having a deck period, and just managing to scrounge together all the cards in the last like 30 minutes before the event starts. Sometimes I've literally been writing my deck list as like round 1 is starting. One time I actually started round 1 and didn't have my ruler, and I had to like run over to someone and get my ruler. And my opponent was like mad. He's like, "Judge, like my opponent doesn't have a ruler." He's like, "No, I swear, like you can check my deck list. I just forgot it." So, for the most part, I don't really buy cards. I just try to, like, when we have a box event at my locals, or once I've accumulated enough credit from winning locals or performing well at locals, I will just use that to buy a box. So I do not really, for the most part, purchase product, not with my own money anyway.
Right.
If I store credit or box tournament winnings.
Well, I mean, that's all the questions I had. Do you have anything just you had on your mind you wanted to say before we end it?
No, I think I've said just about everything I felt like I needed to talk about tonight.
Right.
Awesome. All right, so I guess that wraps it up. Thanks for joining us on this sort of semi-inaugural, what will eventually be the semi-inaugural episode for our podcast once we jazz it all up and put it up. But yeah, no, that was a lot of fun. I enjoy all that insight, and like I said, I enjoy, especially recently in the past couple weeks, your all your posts and stuff you've been doing have been pretty good reads for and all that. So yeah, I'm super interested to see how the decks and stuff are going forward, especially now with the band. So I'm pretty excited about that, and I'm glad that if you played a part in that helped out with that.
I'd like to think I did, but I know for a fact, regardless of whether or not that's true, that Jim had a big hand in everything that happened. And I really think the community should show their appreciation for that and really show up to those ARGs, because Jim worked really hard to get those ARGs and get that prize support that he did. So,
oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm hoping we got some here in Texas for us to go to. Maybe I'll try and see if he ever wants to do an interview. That'd be cool.
He just did one actually for Dragon Ball Super the other day, so I'm sure he'd be more than happy to. If you guys send him a message and ask him about it, I'm sure he'd be happy to get on.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, especially in light of these bands and all that. Mm-hmm. All right, cool. Well, thanks for coming on, and hopefully we'll talk to you again at some other point.
Yeah, we'll see you.
All right, sounds good, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you.
All right, so that was the interview with Alex Blandin. I really enjoyed that interview, so hopefully he'll come on again at a future episode here, assuming you guys like this enough that you want a future episode, so let us know. #Team Podcast. Yeah, so I really liked his thoughts on a lot of things, minus his thoughts on pandas. I think pandas are going to be the gods among ants coming forward. So, right. Just so you guys know. Would you agree with him overall, Oscar, on a lot of the meta going forward and different things like that?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with when we asked about the ban list, and he felt Severing Winds should have been added to it. I play with Severing Winds, but it's because if you don't play with it and everybody else is playing with it, then you're behind. So if it was banned, I would agree with it.
That was the only part I slightly disagree with. I know I'm not in the majority with this, but I actually really like Severing Winds because it makes it, no matter what deck you're playing and no matter what deck you're playing against, you sort of have this, every move you make, you want to plan against it. Like when I was playing against I forget his name, but during a tournament with DMO73, I did a mirror bench against another Soul player, and he was really good about when he triggered different spells at end of my turn or beginning of his turn and different things like that. So he very rarely played 2 spells in a row. So even though I had Severing Winds in hand, I could never use it and stuff like that. So I feel like it just adds an extra complication for playing, but also adds counters to decks that otherwise couldn't run counters. But that's just me. But yeah, so let us know what you guys thought, and with what you thought of Alex Blandin's views and our thoughts on it and stuff like that, and what you guys want to see going forward with the podcast. Once you might have a better idea next week when it's just a straight podcast of me and Oscar talking.
And let us know some topics you want us to cover, things you want us to discuss or even look into. Maybe we have to research something if it's not necessarily, say, Force of Will related, or you're comparing Force of Will to something else. And other interviews you'd like to see us talk to with.
Yeah, and when we say Force of Will, we mean the company as a whole, so that could encompass Force of Will, casters, architects, stuff like that. Just in case whatever you guys might be interested in, we'll be covering a whole range of topics. But yeah, so we'll see you guys next time. Like I said, join. You can follow us on Facebook, join our Discord, Patreon. TCGscrubs.com is our website where we post articles for the news, deck lists, all that good stuff. And yeah, any closing thoughts, Oscar?
No, I'm good. We'll definitely get into it next week better.
We'll see how that goes.